Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I am here to do a walkthrough of the beautiful Supra Oracle. This is an oracle by Usi. They are the same people who created the Pagan Otherworlds tarot, which is a deck that I quite love. When I saw images of this deck, I knew like this was a deck just simply made for me. It seemed to really inhabit a space of my Libra brain, and I was really excited about it. I know this was through a Kickstarter at first. I purchased it after the Kickstarter through the website. I want to say it was in March or something of that nature, but I could be wrong. And I think it might have even been earlier than that. Anyways, and at the time I think it was only going to be a month or two till it was finished. They did have some issues with illness, as well as some like office space issues and things of that nature that has pushed it back, but it is certainly worth the wait. But it actually ended up coming on my birthday, which was very exciting and a great way to wrap up a wait for this beautiful deck. It came wrapped in foam with this real actual leaf stuck on it, which is just a beautiful touch. As with the Pagan Otherworlds, there's a linen bag with Usi in it. And then it does come in this tuck box with a red interior. My tuck box is a little bit tight for all the cards. I do have to kind of give it a wiggle because it's that traditional, just regular flap. You know, they kind of try to get stuck underneath there. It's a real tight fit there. It's something I hate to have to really struggle to get cards in. But that is definitely the case. But it's a beautiful box. You can see it's got like matte gold. It's got a seal on there. At the bottom, I can't read, but 2018 Usi, and that's such information. So it's a beautiful tuck box. I will say that, I'll just get this out of the way, I was really disappointed in terms of the cardstock as soon as I pulled it out. I have the first edition Pagan Otherworlds, which is a beautiful linen plain cardstock that is, in my opinion, perfection almost. It's absolutely stunning. Usi's kind of known for their playing cards and for playing cardstock. And so because I have the first edition, I didn't realize that the third edition switched to more of a tarot cardstock, this thin, smooth tarot cardstock. And that to me, it was a real letdown because I just assumed that it would be something similar, maybe not the exact same cardstock, but sort of a luxe playing cardstock is what my assumption was. And so this very slick, this slips and slides everywhere. Cardstock was definitely, and it's still a bit of a disappointment to me. It does have a lot of slide to it. Some people will absolutely love that. Overhand shufflers will love that, but it is way too slippy for me, for my taste. And again, the expectation was some sort of a gorgeous plain cardstock, which is different than a satiny, smooth tarot cardstock. So that was definitely a disappointment. And again, this isn't bad cardstock by any means. It's kind of similar to Make Your Playing cardstock, to be honest. It's a little bit nicer, in all fairness. It is a little bit nicer than Make Your Playing cards, but that's kind of the feel that you get, the sense that you get for it. In fact, if anything, I think it's probably more slippery than Make Your Playing cardstock. But if you have something like that, you could kind of get a feel for what type of tarot cardstock this is. So it's not cheap paper by any means. It's just a particular type, and so that to me was a disappointment. But the deck is so amazing. I've kind of gone through it in a couple of different formats and ways, and it's just the deck itself is so beautiful. That's not, it's not a game changer by any means. It's just what I had in my head. I have already done the sides which you're not going to be able to really tell, which is kind of the point of why I actually really love the way this turned out. The cardstock, because it is whatever kind of cardstock, it's thinner and it's very laminated on either side, not in a sticky way whatsoever. It's really nice laminate, but there's very little paper, raw paper on the side, and so I edged it with because it was just white. You have this beautiful antique look on the front, and this beautiful browns and golds on the back, and so just plain white sides didn't really work for me. So I used this Copic in Y28 liquid gold, and this made a almost exact, in person it is almost exactly, and I don't even say almost, like in person it looks exactly like the front. So they look seamless. It looks like a deck that has aged and been used, and it's really beautiful. I'm extremely happy with how this turned out. It doesn't so much look like it's been edged, it just looks like it's been worn, and it's perfect. So I'm really happy with that. Now Patrick, I don't know if he has any images up on his Instagram, but he did it in a gold, like a shiny gold, and I'm tempted by it, but I love the look of this so much, and that's something I can always go back and do over the top of this if down the road I want to. But I really love this, but if you wanted a more shiny gold, you could certainly do that, and hopefully he'll put some pictures up so you can see how that turned out. But I am absolutely thrilled with the seamless way that this actually looks. So again, that's what I use this for. I guess I'm just getting out of the way what changes I've made. There are 6 cards that do not have any titles on them. They do have titles in the guidebook, but they don't have titles on them. I don't know why that is. I ended up going ahead and using now this is sleek cardstock. I know this is going to horrify some people that I wrote on my cards, but I did. This is a micron perm. So you can't use a regular micron because it will just wipe right off. So this is like a permanent marker micron. I used the 0.03, and I just wrote the right in the same places where the other titles are. I just wrote them. Now I could actually go by and actually make another line across there, but I'm not going to do that. So yeah, so I went ahead and put those on the top of that. So those are the modifications to the deck that I've done, is just to make the white paper cut sides look like the front, and I did add the titles to those cards. So that's what I have changed about this particular deck. Your deck will not have titles on those cards, and your deck sides will be pure white, or kind of pure white. So that's why I wanted to talk about those 2 things, because people always ask like what I used, and that's what I used. So that's that. I did not order the guidebook, so I'm sure there will be other people who will do reviews of the guidebook. Patrick does have it, and he said it's absolutely beautiful. It's luxe. The cover is beautiful. The binding is beautiful. The paper is beautiful. Uzi just does really beautiful things. I'm going to read you just this one little paragraph, just so that you can see what it says about itself as to what the Supra Oracle is. It says, Supra is an Oracle deck loosely based, oops, let me zoom this in for my eyes. Supra is an Oracle deck loosely based on Jungian psychology and how it mingled with medieval Gnosticism. We loved the melding of science, psyche, and ancient knowledge in Jung's practice that inspired an artistic leap at the dawn of the 20th century in how man relates to the world around him. It was a process of soul-making in an era of growing preoccupation with the machine, and a return to our mystic roots that nourish and enliven our essential selves, our individual identities within the immeasurable expanse of the cosmos. So I thought that was a wonderful explanation, right, of what the deck is supposed to do. And it is really gorgeous. It is broken into, in the guidebook, it doesn't, I don't believe it, I think it comes this way too. In the guidebook, it's broken down into 4 sections. I'm going to move this over here and this over here out of the way. It's broken into 4 different sections. It has the elemental section, which they call materia prima, and that has aether, which is all of the energy that fills up the universe that's not matter, right? Some people might look at this as maybe spirit or that kind of thing, but it is technically or classically it is that idea. It's everything else that the universe is. And then you have the air, fire, water, and earth. So you have the sort of elemental breakdown, which of course we'll go through all of the cards in a minute. Then it has something called, a section called the hidden path. Now it does not explain, they're very hard to pick up. I thought it was just on my glass surface, but it is on any surface. That's another thing that's just like, I don't understand. It's just a cardstock. It's real thin. Not bad thin, but it's just hard to pick up. So then there is a section called the hidden path, and this is probably one of my favorite sections. This starts with a beautiful card of nothing. Again, we're going to talk about all of these, but it has cards that are, I think, much more about the inner realm. And, you know, things such as moon and spirit and ego and psyche and these kinds of things that are very internal. So that section is called the hidden path. And then the main section is called the secret. It doesn't say why these sections are called what they are, but it's called the secret, and it's basically all the other cards. All the other cards in the deck except for the sacred geometry, which I showed a little bit earlier. So I think these were add-ons to the Kickstarter, and so these are sacred geometry that have color and shape here. And so then that is the 4th section of sacred geometry. So we have the materia prima, which is the basic elements, you know, the components that makes up the universe. We have the hidden path that's much more internal, and this type of thing. And then we have all the other cards except for the sacred geometry cards. So this is how the deck is broken down into parts. Now that does mean that it is not alphabetized in the guidebook. I have seen the pages of it. You can skim it relatively quickly, but it is one of those things that if you're, you know, looking for something quickly, it's not numbered and it's not alphabetical. It's a pet peeve of mine. I'm not using the guidebook, so I guess it's, you know, it's not something I can really complain about because I didn't purchase the guidebook. But I understand not wanting to put numbers on it. And then at the same time, they do have sort of breakdowns that they wanted to highlight. So it's just one of those things, right? One of those things. So yeah, I think that's all of sort of the preamble. You know, I'm good at the preamble. So let's go ahead and zoom in. I just realized I did all this without the fairy lights on. How can that be? How can we not have fairy lights? But that's okay. I'm not redoing it to put fairy lights on. Let me show you the backs. The backs are beautiful. They're not like a universe, like that doesn't have sort of that. It's not black with stars. It's really brown tones. There's probably some black and some gray in there, but it's predominantly you get sort of a feel of matter, but also matter that is of the universe, because you do have sprinkles of gold. It's highlighted more in the box itself than it is on the actual back of the cards. You get a lot more of that gold sprinkling in the box, but it's a beautiful backing. Yeah, beautifully done. Again, these slip a lot, so we're going to be slip sliding our way through this. See, when I can't do this and it won't stay, like that kind of thing is annoying to me, which is just too bad. Again, it should not stop you from experiencing this deck, but it is an annoyance. I can't pretend otherwise. Again, here we have Aether. This is sort of the beginnings of things, right? This is what generates the rest of the universe. So we have the Aether card. We have then the 4 elements, as you can imagine. They do have some different keywords, even though they make sense. Like, I think they're going on a much more classical. You're not going to get air is going to be intellect and communication. For example, air keywords are motion, subtlety, life, invisible, touch, and sound. So you can see the hints of how we look at elements today in tarot, but they're going on, again, a much more classical and also a much more Jungian look at these types of things. And it's lovely to have, but obviously you can just use this as you see air to be. You can see that there's just very basic line border around it. The title is above it, and then it's just I don't want to say just, it's gorgeous, simple but stunning artwork around it. Very, very beautiful. So here we have our air, we have our fire, we have our water, and we have our earth. So these are just traditional symbols of these elements that are beautiful. So that is the Materia Prima section. And then this gets us into the Hidden Path. This is a stunning card. I love this. This can come up in so many different ways, right? There is a peacefulness, a quiet to nothingness, right? So this can, but it can also come up in a shadowed way, depending on what your question is. What am I going to gain out of XYZ? And to have the nothing card show up, that could go into shadow very easily. But it can also be that sort of beautiful sense of the void that's very powerful. So this card, I think, is going to be amazing in terms of readings. We have the Forgotten. Again, we have some sort of a squid. It almost looks like the closer I've looked at it, it almost looks like a primordial type sea creature or something. But you can also just think of it as treasure lying on there, something that has been washed up on the shore and forgotten. So that's really beautiful. Every card in here is beautiful. There is not a card in here that I don't love. Silence is amazing. Again, there are keywords in the guidebook that take it in various ways. So this can be just silence. In fact, somebody, I guess I won't say their name because they didn't post it. I guess they posted it kind of publicly, but anyway, somebody had posted on Facebook like their first draw, and this came up, and we're like, that could be like, hush, mortal, like don't even bother asking me your foolish questions. Or the effect of things was being silenced. Like there's so many ways in which the keywords that they've used can work in a reading, that it's going to make this it's really going to be a powerful one. Gorgeous moon. This looks like a bear to me. It's probably a wolf, but the more I look at it, I'm 90% sure it's actually a bear, and that's either one is good for me. But it feels like a bear energy to me, and it's beautiful. Primordial. I love this sense because the primordial has that sense of just something that has endured, that sense. But I love this huge mountain because you do get, one of the keywords is immensity, and there is this power that resides in how old the earth really is, and these ancient structures and these ancient crystals, and it's a beautiful, powerful energy. Here we have spirit. So they do have, you know, Aether isn't an exact, like you can just read this as spirit, because it does have a spirit card. So, you know, I think that this is more of the building blocks of the rest of the universe, whereas this is much more in connection with the human sense of spirit. It's just the way that the tree moves, it's really beautiful. We have the hidden card. I love this. This deck that I use a lot called the Cartes Divinatories Dialgaro, which I'm slaughtering. I love this deck, and it has a curtain card where it's like what's behind the curtain, and I love that card. It comes up in so many interesting ways in readings, so I'm really glad that this deck has a card like that. We, of course, then have the unconscious. Now, we don't have the conscious. There's a lot of kind of feelings of sets here. We don't have the conscious and the unconscious. But the conscious, I think, it shows up in a variety of the other ways. So here we have that. And again, stunning image. Again, there's not an image here that I don't really love. Here we have synchronicity. I love that we can see the reflection of the physical in the waves. So that is synchronistic, right? The fact that we see in whatever we're scrying, whether it's water or clouds or crystals or the cards that we pull, we see a reflection of what is physically there. And it's this moment of synchronicity that allows for amazing divination. Here we have ego. Ego technically is that idea of our sense of self-esteem. There's some other keywords on here of awareness and identity. And then that kind of goes along also with psyche. And this is that sense they have keywords of accomplishment, becoming significant, and elevation. Again, I said this on, I know a lot of people probably watched the unboxing and have already seen this, but I have to say for psyche, if you haven't read Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, I really recommend it. It's a beautiful retelling of the myth of Psyche. But anyways, that's what we have there. And then we have Animus and Anima. Now, I mixed these up because I was just looking at the images. I mixed these up in the live unboxing, and I love it. Even Bart was saying, oh, you know, it's actually the opposite. And then, of course, I looked closely, and I was like, yeah, and I was really even loving these cards more once I really came to understand that while we have a female figure on Animus, right, the Animus is masculine, but it is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. So it is that understanding, that integral understanding that within the female is the masculine, right? And this represents that. The Anima is the feminine side of the masculine. So again, that resides within the masculine resides the feminine. And so you see this interconnectedness of these energies. So I love that. You do have the sense of creativity with Anima and the logic that's associated with Animus. But it is what's so that powerful about this is that understanding is we're not just looking at femininity, we're looking at femininity within the masculine, masculine within the feminine, and the way that those things are not separated out one or the other. It's the way in which they all interact and interplay. So I love, love, love that. This is something else I really love. I'm actually going to zoom out here. So I noticed when I was going through these that there are 4 cards that link together by this labyrinth. And I love this because it's not just visually a link, but it's this beautiful connection here between feeling and sensation, which are two different things, right? This idea of feelings are about our emotions and the things that we're feeling, whereas sensation is more that, like the six senses, what we can actually see and touch and taste. Those are two sides of different, of the same concept. You think of feeling, I feel something, but this is about feelings and emotion. This is about actually what is and what can be touched or tasted or heard or seen, that kind of thing. And then on this side we have thinking and intuition, right? So thinking is about, what's going on in the mind, right? Thinking in the mind and logic and thinking about what is. Whereas intuition is taking that leap of premonition and that leap of divination that is just so powerful. So this, I think, is this gorgeous interplay. And there goes my freaking camera. I've been having lots of problems with my camera again, so you probably won't notice it because I'll have to lighten everything up, but it may look a little grainy right now. So anyways, I really love the way that they did this. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get these off of the table, which again, as a card reader, that can be quite frustrating doing readings for people and you can't get the cards off the table. Okay, so now let's go back, and plus it just like rips up your nails, and if you're a card reader you already have to do your nails a ton, or I do, just because everybody's having to stare at my fingers all the time. So anything that makes me have to do that more is not something I'm a fan of. I love this individuation here. This is that idea of fate and identity, but in that sense of, I think, identity that sort of takes you out of the masses. So obviously you can't look at this and not think King Arthur, or I can't. And that idea of that moment that he pulled the sword out of the stone, he became something other than what he was. He became something separate from what he was and from the people that were around him, and he was never going to be the same or part of what he was a part of before. So it's just, I think that's a powerful card that gives me goosebumps. Mysticism, I mean, that speaks for itself. It's absolutely beautiful and mysterious. Imperfection, I love this. There is a sense of loss. There is a sense of damage that's here. I think one of the keywords is also wound on this. But at the same time, this speaks to me of the imperfect beauty. That sense that something that is flawed can also be really beautiful and can make something distinctive and stand out from the rest as well. So there's just multiple ways that this, for me, can be read. This is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. When I saw this, I was just like, oh, somebody please just give me this deck right now. It's just such a simple image of a fence. I mean, if you watch sketching videos, or if you watch watercolor videos, we have all seen pictures of fences with plant growth around it and a bird on it. Like, it's just so beautifully everyday, and I love the word everydayness. It's just everything about this is beautiful. It is the beauty of the everyday. It is the strength even of the everyday. I love it. Manifestation. It's beautiful. It speaks for it's that spiral, something starting to manifest outward. I mean, it's just a beautiful image. I love this potential, this strength. It feels very much like the sun card that I learned tarot on with Lou in it, and there's just this idea of power and potential here that I think is stunning. It's very energetic. It's very motion oriented. Imagination, look at that. Conception, ideas, artistry, invention, these are kind of some of the key words for this imagination. Like the thought processes of taking fabric and turning it into something beautiful. I see a story here in imagination. I see a princess in the back of her dress. There's just so many things that your mind can go within the folds. I even see things in the folds of the fabric. So yeah, it's beautiful. Love this impasse. You know, there's a lot of I'm thinking of, I think, like the Hermit card in the Fountain Tarot with all of the brush. I think there's something in the Wild Unknown that has that sense of sticks and things blocking things. It's just really beautiful. So then when we come to an impasse. Now this is interesting. So this is Daemon. I don't know if it's pronounced just plain old demon. I should have looked that up. But what I did do was actually look up, I'm just going to say demon at this point, but I ended up looking it up, and classically, before Patrick had gotten his guidebook to see what their keywords were, classically, this does not mean demon the way we see demon in terms of a devil or something, or evil spirit. It just meant a lesser deity, a guiding spirit, nature spirits, ghosts, spirit guides, forces of nature, these kinds of things can all be part and parcel to that. Now, their keywords tend to go both a little bit. Obsessive and selfish, but there's also mercurial, so there is that sense of, you know, it's like fey energy. It can go one way or the other. Don't expect it to always be good or always be bad. But then there was also keywords of genius and creativity. So it's quite interesting. And image-wise, you know, you have this manacled hands holding out the hands in this sort of boar-looking figure pouring water onto the hands, and that can be read in so many different ways, right? Because you think about that, in some ways that can be soothing and providing healing to wrists that have been that. Other ways it could be like holding their hands out for help and all you're giving me is water. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of ways I think you could go with that. That's definitely one I'm going to sit with, but I love the way that classically this does not necessarily mean an evil spirit, and so you can go both ways. I think the key, though, is that it is that mercurial word. That key is that it's an energy that you can't always trust whether it's going to go your way or not. Just because a fae is beautiful in the woods doesn't necessarily mean that they're up for your best interest, right? Just because a vampire has glittering skin does not mean it doesn't want to eat you. These kinds of things. So that to me is where I'm kind of landing on with this, is that idea that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good. You better be careful because it could go one way or another. Beautiful release card. Freedom. Like they're just gone. They're in the wind, right? They have left the building. It's beautiful. Gorgeous magic. You definitely get a sense of, you know, Oracle of Delphi kind of feeling. It's just beautiful. Power, divination, illusion. There's so much with the word magic. Myth. How beautiful is this? Myth. You know, this is the storytelling with the capitals S. This is what drives everything that I've done. Including, you know, studying literature, to becoming a tarot reader, to naming of my blog, which turned into the Truth in Story. It is the understanding that the story with the capital S is what runs through everything. It's very powerful. It is our inheritance. It is our ancestry. It is the lore of humankind making sense out of this vast and amazing universe that we are part of. So I love, of course, that is there. Sageness. I like some of these words. But for me, sageness is wisdom. Their keywords are a little bit different. You know, they're like beginning. There's a lot of beginnings. I will say, skimming through some of their keywords, there was a lot of repetitive energy, such as creativity showing up a lot, or beginning showing up a lot, or things of that nature. You can kind of skim through and see a lot of repeated keywords. But in my opinion, I think this is a deck that, yes, you might want to look up a couple things. Like I looked up Aether to make sure that I, understood that correctly in terms of a classic sense. I looked up Anima and Animus and had a conversation with Bart about it. So there's a couple that you want to sort of solidify in your head. That's why we are able to research and look at dictionaries, and that's all wonderful. It just melds you closer to the meaning when you do a little bit of work for it. And so I think that this is one of those things that you're going to be able to run with them in so many different ways. I love the improbability. Is she shooting at the moon or is she shooting at the sun? Is it probable that she's going to be able to hit the moon or the sun? No. But that potential is still there, and that being willing to try, right, is there. But that could be light or shadow. Again, depending on the question. Am I going to get that job? The probability is not real high. Sincerity. I love the concept of the clasped hand. That's in many fortune-telling decks, old fortune-telling decks, the clasped hands. It's a concept I love to see in a deck. Stillness is just, it's beautiful. This is one of these decks that's like, what can you say other than that it's so beautiful? There is a sense of a space in which to just sit and contemplate what you need to think about. At this place and space that you can just be for a moment. It's beautiful. Simplicity, again. It's beautiful because really this is a very simplistic, it's just a robe of cloth, but all of the beauty in the way that the cloth is falling and pooling is really gorgeous. It's just it's a straight piece of cloth that just, naturally falls in these patterns in a beautiful way. So I do like that image for that. We do have conflict. There are some keywords in here that are shadow. And then again, as we've already talked about, there are many that are like this, that could be shadow or that could be light. Could be shadow. Are you forgetting something and moving forward, or have you been forgotten, right? Those are two concepts. Silence can be terrifying, and it could also be peaceful. The moon, same thing with the moon, right? Hidden things can be devastating secrets, or they can be powerful wisdom to be found. So almost all of these words, ego, that can definitely be light and shadow. All of these things can I would say all of them have different facets, but everydayness, that can be the boredom of routine, of nothing happening, but it can also be the power and beauty of those everyday things. So this is a deck that I think is very much set to have powerful ways to read this depending on what it is you're asking of it. And so I really like that presence of either light and shadowy words, but more importantly with things as they really are, which is usually a mix of the two. So I love that. But we do have a conflict card. Gorgeous gentleness card. This to me speaks, and some people I know find those eyes to be creepy, and sometimes that's the case, but for me in this deck it just feels like a marble statue. It's just stunning with that bird right there. Deus Ex Machina. This is beautiful. I was like, oh, I know what that is, but I couldn't think of it when I was walking through it, and Bart was like, explained it to me. I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's beautiful. I looked it up, and it was a Greek, it's Greek for God from the machine. So this is an abrupt or unexpected resolution out of a seemingly impossible situation. So it's this being put in these impossible situation, or something that just doesn't seem like it's going to resolve, or you just have all of this, and then all of a sudden the answer comes, or the solution comes. comes, or the God appears and grants something wonderful to that, or you just don't know what's happening all the way through, and all of a sudden at the end of the story everything comes together, and you have this everything come out as it should be. So very powerful. Cards that have threshold. Now this is maybe, I would say this is maybe my least favorite of the, and this is probably one that I do want to read the whole entry on, because image-wise, like, I love the idea of the threshold, but you do generally see a path forward or a door opening, the threshold of a door. Here we have two kind of human-faced lions. I don't know if you can see this one's face on this side, but it does kind of look like a human lion. I'm not sure what this image has to do. Although, if you look at this, it's like these lions here are creating the path. See how this path is coming together? They're almost like they're shaping the clouds into a path to be able to move forward into. So that's certainly possible. It's one of the very few of the images that I kind of had to just look at it like, what? Like, I don't really know what they're trying to say here. This is beautiful for reawaken. I love this old piece of wood that has fallen or been cut down, and then you have this new growth here. Transformation. I mean, that's just, again, I can't tell. I need to count up how many times you see the word beginning. They have this idea of hope. This sense of, you could almost see that this might be a black and white, version of the rainbow. It's this idea of water and storms transformed into light and color. There's a lot here, but just the word itself is so powerful. Here we have Gnosis. I believe Gnosis simply means knowledge. Like, I think that is the word itself, means knowledge. But of course it is linked with Gnosticism, this idea of becoming, understanding humanity's connection to the divine, or actually being divine. I think of agnostics. I always think of that as being willing to say, I don't know the answers. So I don't, it's a belief system that acknowledges that we don't have all of the answers, and being okay with that, that kind of thing. But we have the book here, so in general, you can just read this as knowledge. Perseverance. This is stunning with this cliff and the tree. I mean, this is an image we see for perseverance types things in various forms in different decks, and it's beautiful. I love this oracle, right? This is a powerful oracle. It's not something that you generally would see with oracle, because it has a much more of a powerful feel to it. Like, it reminds me of even the moon card in my very first tarot deck. And so you just have this sense of, I think one of the keywords is dynamic. This is a very dynamic energy, and so this divination that's occurring is there's powerful sense here. This is not something that is weak or watered down. Like, this has a sense of strength and has a sense of the ability to change our trajectory and change things. It's just, I just think it's really powerful. Then we have the Seeker card, which I absolutely love. Now, there are two cards here that you could use as a significator. There is this Seeker card, and then there's also the card of the Self. Obviously, the Self is who we are, right? That speaks to who we are and who we are going to become and this kind of thing. But the Seeker is more of the person who is actively looking. Not everybody in the world is actively looking. If you're getting a reading, then in my opinion, you're actively looking. And so I will be using the Seeker as a significator card. And I'll show you in a minute how I tend to use those. So you do have the Seeker and the Self. And then that's the main body called the Secret. I'm not entirely sure why that's called the Secret, but that section is called the Secret. And then that leaves us with the Sacred Geometry. Again, I'm 99% sure these were extra cards. You know, maybe it reached its certain goal on Kickstarter and they're extra cards. But we have obviously a square rectangular shape and the color black here for unfathomable. So we do have that sense of depth and that sense of the cosmic and just entering into this beautiful space that is unfathomable. I love that. We have phenomena here with this sort of sacred geometrical shape and the color white. This was conception and form and matter. We have the heavens. And this is interesting. This is what is beyond where we are. We have terra firma, of course, where we are rooted firmly on the ground. We have this beautiful, it looks like the shape of an ammonite. Ammonite? I think it's ammonite. I have a couple pieces of it. Somebody had could not think of it on live chat of unboxing this, but this is the concept of being and becoming and consciousness, kind of rising out of the primordial sea, I guess. And then we have this destiny. Now, of course, I see this as a kite with a string, and I'm like, let's go fly a kite. Let's go embrace our destiny. But I'm sure it's a lot more powerful than that. All right, let's zoom out. So if you can't tell, I mean, I'm absolutely thrilled with this deck. The things that annoy me are surface things like the slippery cardstock. I cannot bridge it without the cards just going all over the place. So it does riffle shuffle well. If you're a riffle shuffler, it does riffle well. You just have to be really careful on bridging it, or just don't try to bridge it at all, because the cards are going to go everywhere. But they slide back in beautifully, and they do a gorgeous, as you can see, oops, you get a really nice, easy to just get a really good mix. And then if you are an overhand shuffler, they glide like a dream. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, which I would say that more than likely the majority of card readers are overhand shufflers. From the gasps of horror that come from riffle shuffling, that would be my guess. And it overhand shuffles really beautifully. Now, I can't help but to do a 4-element spread with this. This is what I think really will shine. So for me, that is fire and air and water and earth. I love the everydayness in the earth. So in this idea of fire, where our passions lay, where our creativity lies, where our sense of moving forward and transforming our lives, that we shouldn't really be looking for perfection. That there is going to be imperfections in what we do. Our life is going to be full of things that are flawed. We do not live in a perfect world, and that's okay. In the essence of the mind, now this is beautiful, right? While we want the masculine power, masculine as an energetically masculine, forward thinking, right? We don't want to be so trapped in our head that we don't allow that nurturing feminine energy, that moon energy, to come in and illuminate and balance out what's happening in the mind. That's beautiful to have there. And then I love this, in the water of our emotions and our feelings, calm, stillness, like pause, be calm, give yourself a space to reflect on the situation in terms of the emotions. And then I love, again, in earth, which is that physical, practical, everyday aspect of our lives, this idea of loving or seeing the power in the small, seeing the power in weeds growing in there and a bird taking a rest on a old stump, that everyday routine doesn't always mean something negative, that it can be a time to sink into the small, instead of, we don't always, so we want to be reaching for the large. We want to have dreams and things we're reaching for, but sometimes it's soothing and healing to sit with the small. So I just think this is a stunning, stunning deck. And I am not, there's nothing about the actual construct of the deck in terms of the card meanings and the images that I am let down about at all. It's beautiful. I can see this being a very, very tippity top kind of deck for me, and one I plan on using a lot in the coming month for Embrace the Magical. And so yeah, so this has been a lovely to have come at long last, and I'm looking forward to working with this. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you all soon.